Hey, even if you're supposedly a perfectly ordinary person, there is nothing ordinary about a God search. Hi, I'm Michael Shevack. That person that you're looking at is Hayley Kelly. Batten down the hatches for her. And welcome to God Search. You are here to discover the experience that people call God. No one knows if God exists. Everyone sits around debating it. Religions drive themselves crazy, battling whose God is God. Not here. We're going to open you up to the actual living experience that some people label with the word God. It's a nice tight word for the word good, as far as I'm concerned. Welcome, Hayley Kelly. You are something that women these days are almost embarrassed to talk about. You are a wife and a mother and a homemaker, and yet, that yet is pretty amazing. Why don't you tell us, Hayley Kelly from Connecticut, tell us about your God search. It is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess it began early for me. I grew up in a very small, isolated town in Arizona, and at the time it was pretty isolated. I'd say it was the middle of nowhere. And so I had a lot of time to roam the desert and explore caves and the wilderness, and I was extremely imaginative. I mean, I was in a whole different world every day, like completely imaginative. I mean, my sisters all made fun of me, like I was talking to myself constantly, but I was talking to other people. I was talking to my imaginary friend, which was a dragon. I was like living in this fantasy world, and it was um, a lifesaver for me, to be honest. I lived and thrived there. Um, and I was extremely sensitive. I realized now as an adult, like I was feeling a lot of what other people were feeling, and I didn't understand that. And so I always thought there was something wrong with me. I mean, I was just like really sensitive.
How,
But I think that
what was the sensitivity like?
I just felt so deeply, and I would feel things around other people that I couldn't explain. And I would just like, and it didn't feel like it, again, at the time, like I didn't have words for it, but now I can see, like, oh, I don't know if that was like necessarily like something that came from my thoughts. It was just like I was feeling a lot of stuff, feeling a lot of energies. And, at night, I think I would also see shadows and people and coming in and out of my room. And I had a lot of like vivid dreams and nightmares. I think as a kid, I was just like really wide open and what I would call imaginative. I don't know, maybe I was living on a different dimension. And, but, that was my childhood. But then one thing that started the whole God search, I think, for me was this question about suffering, which began very early on because I just didn't understand it. And I would ask every adult that I knew, every single person. I would read these National Geographic magazines, reading about other people, other cultures, and I just didn't understand like why someone could be born in a situation that was just so dire and so like full of suffering, and how could someone be born in a very healthy environment and thrive? And I just nobody had answers. I just never understood like what this suffering was about.
It's
And
amazing. It's amazing because that is the core question. That was the beginning of the legendary journey of the Buddha,
mm,
where, he's in a palace and he comes upon suffering. It's the story of Moses who sees the Egyptian, uh,
mhm,
killing someone, and the grotesqueness of the evil
mhm.
shatters the person.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in great company.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I searched, and so I grew up Catholic, very devout Catholic, I would say. My whole family, very Catholic. And, going to church, I would search for the answers there. And for the most part, I would tune out everything they were saying.
Sure.
But I loved, and this would probably make me a really weird kid, I loved the rituals and the bells and smells. I loved the incense. I loved all the ritual. I would just sit up and watch, like, just, the whole communion. Like, to me, there was something that spoke to me there with like the ritual. Um, and I had a really strong connection, even at that time, with Mother Mary and the saints. I
Mm.
mean, the saints, like, I just devoured every book I could get on the saints. And
Really?
like, they're like my superheroes. Yeah, I
The,
loved the
you mean they
saints.
were like, they were like Iron Man and
Yeah,
Wonder
yeah,
Woman and all those things?
yeah. That's
And
how I viewed
did you
them.
take did you take their lives into you? In other words, if they were representing a certain quality, which saints are the embodiment of that, did you did you receive any qualities from them that altered your life?
Not to my knowledge at the time. Like, I just felt like they were there and I was here. Like, I felt very separate
Shooting
from them.
webs, you didn't start
Yeah,
shooting
yeah.
webs because you got introduced to Spidey Man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was very separate from me, which I think is interesting because it was a world I couldn't obtain here on Earth.
Mm.
So I always put them on this pedestal, and I felt like that was something I could never embody. Um, and yeah, I think later on as a teen, I had like even more deeper questions about um, mortality. I saw a lot of death around me, with friends and some family. And I remember talking to my granddad at the time, just shortly after my grandmother passed. And um, he said, well, all things on earth must come to an end. Nothing can be forever. And then I said, well, what about heaven? And he said, everything in heaven is eternal. And both of these ideas of mortality and eternity was like, I don't know. It just didn't, that began my existential crisis, my existential exploration of like, what does eternity mean? What does
Yeah.
it look like? And then I wasn't also comfortable with mortality either. So,
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's an inherent contradiction because
right.
if everything is always going to come to pass,
Hmm.
then it is eternal in its always coming to pass.
Right. Yeah.
So of course your mind can't take it in
Yes.
because
Yeah.
it is eternal
Right.
in always doing anything. And
Hmm.
it's a very complex thing. For those
Yeah.
of you out there, welcome to Godsearch. This Haley Kelly is bringing up something really important. There's a lot of confusion around the word eternal, whether something which is eternal never changes. The two idea of eternal and never changing got a lot of confusion there. It's probably
Yeah.
Aristotle, but you're confused because there's plenty of reason to be confused. You were
Mhm.
obviously intelligent and not just sensitive.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My mind was like going 100 miles a minute.
100 miles
So,
an hour.
yeah. Yeah. So I think I just put that in my back pocket and said, all right, I'll explore that later. And I got into my, 20s, and I just became fully immersed in the physical material world, and just didn't, I kind of stopped my exploration there, to be fully human in this world. And, I kind of forgot about the God search for a while, until I had my first child, um, later on. And then everything came back to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is why I was exploring in the first place. Like, I need to know, because I was struck with this love, this deep love with my child that I could never even imagine.
Mm.
And then at the same time, this like mortality crept in and was like, this isn't gonna last forever. And the idea of losing someone I loved that much. I mean, I had these fears too with my family as well, but like it was something different having a child. It was like, oh wow, I gotta get real about exploring this. Otherwise, I'm going to be living in fear and worry. Um, and I suddenly realized like I need to somehow find the answers of what happens when you die and find this balance of loving detachment, raising a child, because
Mm.
I can't always like be in fear and worry over them, because it just isn't sustainable.
Mm.
Um,
He became an
so
in.
that's what's that?
No, no, I'm thinking that it's so interesting that that reawakening took place with your child because you became it's a gift that men don't have in the same intensity. I mean, we
Mhm.
just do our thing and go get a sandwich, you know what I mean? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's not the same thing. I mean, our
right.
ankles don't swell, but it's very interesting because you became a vehicle by which life itself expanded as your body.
Mhm.
And that baby is your body. And faced with that kind of confrontation of being an augmentation of life, the fear of death and transience would be terrifying. I mean, you
Yeah.
have just done the most remarkable thing that a human being can do.
Yeah, yeah. So that catapulted me into exploring everything, mostly Eastern this time, because I felt like I explored Catholicism, Christianity as much as I could, at a younger age, and
Right.
then it would became the Eastern exploration, and I was reading everything. I studied Tantra. I was taking classes. I was looking all over the world for teachers, gurus, guides,
Were you drawn
anyone.
to the Eastern stuff? Did you just feel it? Did you consciously say, it's Eastern time? Or did you feel that something was pulling you there?
I felt something was pulling me there. I felt in like at a visceral level, this is something I had done before. Like there was a memory that was triggered, and I was like,
Memory.
mm-hmm. And I was
Interesting.
like, this is my, and somehow things came easily. Like even studying Sanskrit, I studied mantra, like the Hanuman Chalisa, like scriptures. It all felt right to me. It was like, oh, I know this. Like I know this language. This is like, I don't know. This is making sense to me. And but I still didn't have all the answers. And I also felt with that exploration, I started meditating a lot, doing a lot of deep dives, had some very amazing bliss-like experiences, like where I was just like blasted into this like expansive realm of love, and I was connected to everything. And like I felt so much joy and bliss, and then suddenly whew, back to this earth. Yeah, excuse me.
That's right.
And
Did
then something, once I was back in this body, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this body, and I don't know what to do on this earth. It was like I was divided. And then it became a constant search for that bliss state. And I started meditating even more and more and more to almost like escape this humanness. Um, so yeah, it became like this seeking of this other world,
so you,
this
you felt
mystical
that you
world.
had actually left your body during those stages, right?
Yeah.
But that's fascinating. Right? And you actually did you maintain a connection to your body's senses, or did you feel that your body was elsewhere?
I could see my body. I had like
Right.
semi-conscious like awareness that my body was there, but I wasn't my body and I wasn't in my body.
Right. It was present.
It was present, yeah. And there was always like some little part of my ego at the back door being like, it's still here. Like, so I was still like aware.
But
And during,
when you were in the church and your early childhood experience with the saints, did you feel that kind of disembodied love, or was it a different quality to the love?
mm, that's a good question. Um, I don't know. I mean, I could probably, like, I felt disembodied a lot as a kid anyway when I was in my fantasy world. So, um, yeah, I mean, I just remember being at times like in church staring up at the statue of Mother Mary. Or at one point, we had a statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Right.
And I would just feel, um, yeah, I guess you could say I was like really feeling that power coming or emanating from the divine feminine.
Different through the Eastern modality than through that,
Yeah, it was different. I felt a little bit, I felt still probably more embodied with the Western.
more
Eastern, I
embodied,
was like, yeah,
more disconnected. You were more transcendent to the body.
yeah.
That's
Uh, in the Eastern, I was more like, sorry, the what, like when I was in like those experiences, like with Catholicism and with the saints, I felt more in my body.
interesting. And do you think that's because the way one might be programmed is to think of West as material and East as not material?
Oh
And
yeah,
when you're doing the Western, you're more, and do you think it's a pre-programming thing, or is it intrinsic to incarnation, which the church takes the notion of incarnation, meaning bringing it down to,
right.
do
Yeah,
you,
I mean that's a good question. I just I know that through like studying like the mantra and doing meditation and Buddhist meditation and tantric exercise and breath work, I would lose my body so much quicker and I would be out there somewhere else. Um, but coming back to this body was so much harder, which I could talk more about because I had one experience where I just I landed wrong. And it
you
opened me up and,
landed wrong? I
it
love it.
landed wrong. Yeah, I mean, you could say, yeah, it was definitely a spiritual awakening or a Kundalini experience. But before that, like, yeah, I was meditating so often and I was like receiving words not even in my own language. I would look them up. They were completely accurate to what I was like going through. I also had a guide come in at one point that was like so full of love and it was amazing. And I would go to this place, uh, much like I did as a kid, where I was in this imaginary world or this different plane of existence. And I would meet my guide, and my guide would give me things and like give. I mean, there was even a time where he gave me a book, and I saw the title of the book and everything, and it's like when I was in, my normal everyday life, I was like, oh yeah, I remembered there was this book I found in the bookstore, same book, and it was like I had never seen this book before.
Wow.
Opened it up, it was completely relevant to what I was going through at the time. And it was like a fiction book. It wasn't even like a
Sure.
spiritual, like, Tibetan Book of the Dead. It was like a book called Dragon's Bane.
Right.
And and the main character was 39. I was 39 at the time. And I was struggling with this idea of being a mother, a wife, and living this like very material existence with this pull to be this dragon, like this pull to be this mystical person who's experiencing God every day.
And
And
and also the dragon was your best friend.
yes, that was exactly. I didn't make that link until much later. Yes, but
Oh,
yeah, good.
you were revisiting your
I
best
was
friend.
revisiting. Yeah, yeah. So a lot of stuff like happened that I couldn't explain, and it was beautiful. But then one day I had this like intense meditation, very mystical experience. I was everywhere and nowhere all at once kind of experience. And then when I came back into my body, I was like, I felt nauseous. I felt sick. I was like completely, like, totally rocked my world. I felt like I was here, like high as a kite in my body, but also feeling physically sick.
Mm.
And instead of taking care of myself, I jumped on a train to go to New York City to visit my husband, who at the time was giving a lecture in New York. And I went to see him, and I was walking around like the busiest city, high as a kite, completely disembodied, like loving everyone I saw. And it was amazing until that night. And that night, I had like the worst like night terror experience, like some nightmare. It woke me up. I heard a voice so loud and it said, "Now the fear has to come up." And it was the start of what I would experience for months of all of these like experiences, like mystical experiences, not good ones, not pleasant ones. I'd have nightmares in the middle of the day. Like I would just
Sure.
have a flash, like I would like be in an interaction, normal interaction, and I would suddenly have some kind of flashback. Maybe it was my past, maybe it was a past life I had experienced, maybe it was theirs, I don't know, but it was like a story just ran through like in an instant, and it was like jarring to my body. And I went through this for a very long time. I was having like electric, um, like bolts run through my body. Like my body was electric.
Mm.
And I had like these jolts that would just wake me up. And I had, I did not sleep because I was terrified of like what I was going to experience in my sleep. Like these horrific lifetimes of death and suffering. And not all on this earthly plane either. So
Sure.
it was startling. And here I was, like, I felt like I was on the borderline of like psychosis, but with it just enough to be like taking care of my kids, putting dinner on the table, and taking them to school and their activities, and trying to have some very normal conversation with other parents.
Right.
Meanwhile, I'd go home and, like I'm having these like supernatural experiences.
Sure.
I could sense even more now, like my everything that was going on with my kids. I could feel all the things they were feeling.
Sure.
I was just this wide open, like being, and not in necessarily a good way. It was like I just could, everything was coming in, and I was just like going through these levels of fear, like these deep, deep levels of fear, and facing these different levels of fear. And it was almost like an initiation. It felt like some kind of initiation.
That's
Like,
that's what I was thinking as well.
yeah.
Sometimes what happens is that you have the innate ability as a child. I know I did. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and even though my parents were atheists and really not hardly spiritual at all, but you embedded yourself deeply into the material. You had children and got very rooted on the earth, and then you launched skyward and cosmically to a completely different realm, began to then bring it down and match all of that heavy duty, concentrated earthly thing you had done before. So it's like it's like the two things had to mesh, and it wasn't going to do it very easily. They were two very, very different realms.
Hmm.
Earthly mother and divine mother were two very different realms in you, and they seem to
Yeah.
be coming together. You know,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's not a very easy thing. So wait, so you traveled also a lot, right? Did you?
Yeah.
I remember you telling me that you spent goodly amount of time in India.
Yeah. That came just after.
So once the
Yeah.
got came in place, you really needed to get some
Yeah.
heavy guns out there. Did you find a teacher?
I had a teacher that I had been working with all for a while now, and
Yeah.
I did go with that teacher. And um, one thing I did want to say with this awakening, though, before I forget, because it was an important piece, was that like I went to so many different doctors trying to have them fix me. And some of them were like, oh, you're just a crazy housewife. Like, you need to just be on medication. Like so many doctors dismissed me. I did go to one, an endocrinologist, and I remember she looked at me and she said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're having a spiritual awakening. And I was like, I know, I just don't want to admit it because it's the harder way, right? Like, you kind of want someone to just say, take this and you'll be fixed.
Right.
But I knew I needed to like take that deep dive and face these fears and go through it. I needed to go through it because that's the only way out. And fortunately, my husband, even though he's very mathematical, very scientific, linear thinker, probably thinking I'm crazy, but at one point in his life, he read all the Carlos Castaneda books. And
And see,
thank God he did, because he was like, okay, this is very similar to, he would go through those books and explain like that he was seeing parallels of what I was going through and what Carlos Castaneda talks about in his books. And so thank God, because like he could have easily just written me off as like, all right, she's lost it, like completely lost it. And so that was helpful. So with acceptance, with finally surrendering and just accepting that this is what it was, um and I did a lot of acupuncture, and that helped, and I finally got into balance. And though I was still feeling very open and I could sense, and I all of my like clairs, if you will, like, uh clairvoyance, all of it was like very like highly active. And so I was trying to make sense of all of this. And I think that's where India came into focus. And I'm like, well, that must be where the answers are. So I went to India and had even more mystical experiences there. And I came back and felt completely ungrounded. And yeah, I was not like, I was so separated. I was like, I had my spiritual world and then I had my material world. And I didn't feel, and I felt constantly on edge of like, all right, I need to do this, 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 so I can go to that world. And it didn't feel like the right way to live. It felt like I was always just searching and seeking and avoiding, and I didn't feel integrated. And then, so that's when I met you, actually. It was just after India. And
remember.
yeah, because I was having more mystical experiences, and, you know, um, I think I was pointed into your direction because of your experiences with the supernatural.
Oh, I've been outed.
You've been outed, yes. Sorry. Um,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things the problem is that we are all part. If you're out there, welcome to Godsearch, by the way. I'm Michael Shevack. This is Hayley Kelly. Um, we're in the most exciting era, I think, in humankind, where you have just a mass expansion and inspiration that is happening all around the world. I know everyone's getting all crazy with what's going on with governments and military. My personal belief is that they're sensing the expansion that's there and they're terrified. And that's what's going on.
Yeah.
But there we don't have the same kind of support systems and the same kind of, really discerning understanding about the spiritual process, about how awakenings happen, and what is the orderly structure to them, and where the disjuncts in the process take place. We're doing this all on our own all on our own. I mean, there are invisible helpers and visible helpers also, but
Hmm.
we are doing it all on our own, and it's frightening because
Yeah.
our understandings are either, oh, this is rational, and orderly and methodical, and you can trust it and every day, and then this is irrational, this is illogical, this is psychotic, this is abnormal, this is dangerous. And we kind of get caught in it like adolescents, you know, don't do this, it's dangerous, do this, it's safe, you know.
Yeah.
You're very lucky. I tell you, you're very lucky because to be born in the middle of nowhere was probably the greatest gift you ever had. Though it must have driven you insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it must have. I mean,
Yeah.
to have no reference points around you and that your reference points had to be dislodged from within, that's an incredible, like you're almost born in a cave meditating from the time you were born.
Oh, interesting.
Out of the experience of going to India, I'm thinking of Walt Whitman's, passage to India right now.
Mhm.
What out of that experience, besides the fact that you were kind of dislocated a while until things began to pull together, did your relationship with saints change? Did your relationship with the larger church, which is the world, change?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. So even before I went to India, I had a very strong connection with the Hindu saint Anandamayama.
Really?
Yes, and I the first part of our pilgrimage, the very first place that we were taken to on the pilgrimage, which I didn't know we were going, was her um, resting place.
Would you tell them out there who she is, please?
So Anandamayama, yeah. So she's a Hindu saint, a mystic. Um, I believe uh, around the 1930s era, and she just was this divine mother incarnated, basically, and just beautiful, beautiful, like feminine energy. And she would go into these like bliss like states, like almost spontaneously, kind of like you read about even the like Christian mystics, where they just feel this connection with their beloved and um, yeah, have these like very beautiful incarnations, like feeling that connection. Um, and so when we went to her ashram and her final resting place where her body is, it was that was the most beautiful experience that I had there. But I went to various other sites and felt a very different kind of energy. And I was trying to make sense of it all. And I felt like there was a lot of confusion on my part. Like I thought this would be where I'd find the answers, and I thought I would feel like right at home here. And which, sounds silly for a Westerner to just go to India, feeling like they would feel at home. But, I had these high expectations and I still felt even more confused. I felt like, oh, I'm back where I was with Catholicism. Like it felt like there's so many aspects I can pull from this that I love and align with, but I felt like there was something that just didn't feel right for me.
Sure.
And so I think when I came back, you helped pull these two sides of me, like the Western, Eastern, masculine, feminine, um, earthly, spiritual, all of this like duality that I was living in. Like you helped me integrate it into my body.
Mhm.
And that's when I started coming back to Catholicism and seeing the beauty and the power in that, and seeing how, um, like just the way of living now could be much more of a living meditation rather than like, all right, I do my stuff in the human world, then I go sit and have that experience. And it
Sure.
became much more of a merged experience where I could be cleaning, like scrubbing like the showers and the toilets, but making that my devotional offering to
Right.
God.
A Kraft
And
macaroni and cheese altar.
yes, exactly. Yeah. And that, I mean, that takes, it's like sometimes you have to journey to these faraway places, physically and, you know, spiritually, and then come back and realize like all the sacred, all the divine and God is just right here
Yeah.
in all of this. And my connection with my kids and my husband grew as well, because then I just saw like, okay, this is like, as you put it, nature's ashram. Um,
Family is nature's ashram.
yes. So any experience I was having with the family um, became just part of my spiritual path.
Hmm.
And it sounds simple to say and obvious, when I say it, but living it is a different thing.
Hmm.
Um, so I felt I needed to, go to these like far corners of my consciousness and far corners of the world to figure out that, like, oh, okay, every day can be an altar to the divine. And I can find those beautiful, loving states, like just here in the everyday, with my kids and husband and family and all the interactions, good or bad.
Hmm.
That's the other thing that I stopped. It's still a work in progress, but labeling and seeing things as bad and the other and trying to move away from that
Hmm.
rather than embracing it all as just another aspect of God. Um, that has been a huge one for me.
It's very difficult for everyone because you have to distinguish between a basic mortal fleshly level that's good and
Mhm.
something which is beyond the fleshly normal. It's if you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you an injection and the injection hurts, the pain is, we normally consider that a bad experience, that's not good, but in fact it's there to help us. So we're
Mhm.
programmed as beasts to take pain as something to avoid, and yet we as human beings are capable of overruling that and realizing that pain can be marvelous and helpful. So we have two levels, one where pain and pleasure are at odds, which is very much, dogs who, lick their wounds until they rip them open again because it just feels bad. And then we have a level above where pain and pleasure, they're not dichotomous. They're part of something which is good beyond them. And in that simple pain analogy, you have actually three completely distinct levels of good.
Mhm.
And what happens to us is we get confused because we want to flatten it. We want to flatten it. And that's the big mistake of what I consider armchair spirituality, is that we tend to flatten everything, and then we have trouble putting back in the dimensions, you know, that yes, you can have pain, and yes, you might be able to spiritually advance and not feel your finger being cut off. But why? Do you know what I mean? You could, neutralize the pain and consider that a spiritual art.
Mhm.
But in fact, the pain is there to protect you. So there are levels. And no matter how you advance, you can never get past the levels and flatten it that much so
Mhm.
that, yeah, you'll be able to walk through it, and you'll get this sense of it being coordinated as the different levels of your consciousness become, intertwined and mutually resonating. But you'll
Mhm.
still have that formed of different levels, which each level must be respected for what it is. You
Mhm.
know, uh, the pain of bearing a child is still as ecstatic as I hear it is, and I'm totally envious that you've had that. It's still pain,
Mhm.
and it's still there because your tissues are being, expanded. So,
Mhm.
that's the difficult thing about it is keeping the levels, but not getting lost in the levels.
Right.
And my experience is the only way to do it is to honor each level. And that really where the problem comes is if we dishonor any aspect of creation, we've created a mess for ourselves that we have to clean up later on. It's all good. It just needs to be found, put in the right place for human beings. So
Right.
so are you planning on going back to India at all for any deeper study?
So I've actually not anytime soon. I've actually been called to other places. And I'm going to Peru soon.
Took
Um,
the words right out of my mouth.
really?
Yes, I was just about up. She's going to Peru.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting when I get called to places around the world, I'll have it's like I am not left alone until I book that ticket. Like I will receive like messages, signs, dreams about places I didn't even know existed, like, certain like ruins, like here, like all over the world. And then as soon as like I book the ticket, then it's like, okay, she got the message. But it was like that when I think around the time that I met you, I was going to Assisi because I was
I
really
remember.
connected with St. Francis. And yeah, those messages. And I think one of the very first things you said to me was like, you need to connect with St. Francis and go to Assisi. And I was like, well, actually, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's been fun to do that and explore these places because they bring just a new level of my spiritual path to me. And like you said, it comes in different ways and it might be painful. And some are beautiful and exciting and fun, but I'm trying to be in a place right now where I embrace the wisdom of uncertainty and welcome it all. Um, and it's not easy, but yeah, so that has definitely been a big part of my path is traveling to these places because I think it unlocks um, just new levels of understanding and just a deeper connection with my own spiritual path.
Yeah, I think you are tuned in to one of your bodies is a much more without getting too academic or anything. We've talked about it on God Search. There's more than one level to bodies and more than one body depending on your point of view, and you seem to be very deeply connected to different orders of a collective
Mm,
body where you are in multiple places and multiple either incarnations or views. These are all just relative terms. And you can move there and you are actually familiar with the places. All right. It's either you've been there or you're reading it from a collective body that's already there so intimately as you, it feels as if you are. And I think that that is probably really where a lot of the amazing wandering and cave experiences were, is that you could be disjunct from your, your material body
mhm.
and begin to expand into other levels of your body at a very, very early age.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
Having children would certainly anchor you fast. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just boom. I know it did that for me.
Yeah.
Nothing brings you to the earth faster than a baby that needs to be fed. I have to tell you, or a bank account that needs to be filled if that's your
Mhm.
job.
Right. Yeah.
But it's important for everyone out there. Welcome to Godsearch. Go to yourgodsearch.com and pick up the thread of the conversation. The importance out there is that this stuff is here. It's real. And we are so fortunate to be in the first time ever where we have gone without a gigantic conflagration of war. Yeah, we have wars out here, and they're pretty bad right now. But the world, by and large, has more peace than it's had for a long time. And because of that, we're all awakening. We're not being thrown into the machine, and we have some time and some freedom and some comfort to actually expand. So, you know, just know that if you're out there and you're beginning to have the kind of experiences that Hayley is having, it is because you're free enough to be able to do that, and the world needs you to wake up, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's interesting you say that because I do feel like I am now realizing that like when stuff happens, when stuff comes up that could be labeled as like bad or horrible, it's because it was the right time, because you made time for it, because you were free to have that, and it needed to come up in some way to help catapult you onto your next
Yeah.
stage of
life
evolution.
life is absolutely always 100% perfect, but it needs to be perfected. For ordinary human existence needs to be perfected. We got to make the traffic lights work and all sorts of other stuff. But the timings and everything that take place, they're inscrutably perfect and beyond our ability to you know, even completely fathom it as human beings.
Yeah.
So, wow. So,
Yeah.
coming to a close, tell me what you would tell your own daughters and your own children and future generations. You are the next generation. I'm on my way out. What, what would you teach young women, young men about how to live based on your humble years on the planet?
Oh, well, this is tough. Well, prayer. I think prayer is powerful. Um, I think you helped bring me back to that. I used to pray a lot as a kid. And I think that that can look it's so many different ways for different people. It doesn't have to be, a set standard prayer. But I think having that connection to something higher, or not even higher, but just something beyond this tangible, physical, material world, this temporal existence, having a connection is powerful. And I think it can really work miracles and open you up to higher powers. And I think we forget sometimes just a little thing like a prayer, like a simple, like, just sit for a second and breathe and just like connect to, even if it's just connecting to like, God, your higher self, an angel, an ancestor, just like something to connect you with that unseen world. Um, I think that that is really powerful because I think it's the first step to opening yourself up and receiving the power and receiving the guidance and and then just trusting in the wisdom of uncertainty, like might not have all the answers, and um, we want to have we have a tendency to control things, and but just recognizing that all things are there for a purpose, and not intentionally to harm or destroy you. um, I think that that could be helpful on someone's journey. That,
It
yeah,
sounds like your advice is, hey, there's something bigger here. And two, it gets scary, but trust it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
All right, so
yeah,
that's good advice. Well, thank you, Hayley, for coming, Kelly, for bringing absolutely the great infinite mysteries to every single day life and motherhood and homemaking and all these things that women since 1970s are very, very frightened about. But thank you for bringing depths of understanding and miracles to everyday life here on Godsearch. And
mm,
thank you out there for being here on Godsearch. Uncover God, discover God. If you had a bad religious experience, recover God. And thank you for being here. And it's every Wednesday about 5:45 a.m. And keep your God searching. If you're alive, you are on a God search. So keep going. Wake up tomorrow and you're on it. Thank you, Hayley.
thanks. So
All
good to
right.
see you.
Bye bye. Everyone, go to yourgodsearch.com.